The Cleveland Browns in 2024 were simply put not a good NFL team. Cleveland, as we all know, is still suffering through the decision they made to trade massive amounts of draft capital, things overall, for Deshaun Watson. And, you know, they're licking their wounds at this point. It's just what it is. There's nothing else they can do. But in his 3 years under contract, Deshaun Watson, that is, with Cleveland, he has played just 19 out of the 51 possible games. It's just been a nightmare for Cleveland. It's not been good. But to be honest, Cleveland has always been a nightmare. It just has always been a nightmare. They're the absolute poster child of being a very bad sports franchise, not just in the NFL or in football, in all of American sports entirely. The nightmare gets progressively worse when you realize that Cleveland is now having to be in a situation where they're probably going to have to trade Myles Garrett, one of the best defensive players in the league, that has now requested a trade out of Cleveland. I can't say I blame him, to be honest, but Cleveland, they had their future looking pretty bright with Baker Mayfield, who, you know, they ultimately passed on for Deshaun Watson, and now Baker goes on and has a franchise that he is to call home, right, in Tampa. Cleveland now is going to be selecting top 2 in the draft again in 2025. But how do they fix it? What do they do? Cleveland has been a just terrible team for basically the entire time they've been a team. What can they do? That's the big question. How can they get out of the gutter of American professional sports? That's what we're focusing on today. That mess. That right there. Just before we get into that, though, check out W.GG. Let me tell you, these are the best energy drinks you will find. They taste the best, they're cost-effective, all of the above. Everything you want in an energy drink, they're right here. I've got some right behind me, as you can see. 3 of my favorite flavors, the Push and Punch on top, the green apple on this side, and the blue raspberry over on that side. They're great. They're wonderful. I literally drink them probably every single day, at least once a day. But either way, check them out. W.GG, that's their website, or there is a link down in the description of this video. Check it out. Use code SHREDDER for 10% off your order. Get you a little discount. Try out something. And maybe, you know, you don't want to use a whole single, you know, order on one of these cans that you don't know if you like them. Understand that they do have single serving pouches, little trial size little pouches, so check those out as well. And let's get back to the video. First thing is free agency. Cleveland has some big time free agents that they need to take care of, so let's do that before we get to the draft. Starting on offense, Elijah Moore, Nick Chubb, Jermaine Ifedi, and Jedrick Wills. These are our higher end free agents for this team, right? Okay, so none of these guys are that great, especially anymore considering Nick Chubb. Defensively, they have Devin Bush, Rodney McLeod, Maurice Hurst. They currently sit with about $30 million in cap room. That's enough, but not a ton. Definitely a lot of space, though. But I don't know that keeping any of those guys listed will really be a sought-after thing, despite the, you know, potential chance for a value deal. You know, would a guy like Nick Chubb take a discount to remain a Brown? I don't know why he would, but maybe he will. Not certain. Moving on from that, what are their needs? You know, that's kind of the big question here. They need quarterback. Deshaun Watson's not working out. They need receiver. Jerry Jeudy's their only option there now. Running back, pending Nick Chubb and his situation, and offensive line. So just about everything on offense if you really break it down to that. Defensively, they need an edge rusher pretty badly. Pending the Myles Garrett trade, it could be even worse because right now they only have Myles Garrett, and as good as he is, he doesn't play 2 positions. They need one either way. They may need 2. Then they need linebacker potentially, especially depending on Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah's injury. If you don't know, he got hurt this past year, and he may not return to the NFL. There is a chance of that. So that is kind of concerning, something they have to be prepared for one way or the other. And then their final need, maybe some depth at D-line. I'm just not too concerned about that. It's a depth thing. It's not a, you know, guy who's going to come in and start immediately. Not as big of a deal, but still a need nonetheless. In terms of potential free agents, the Browns could be a value landing spot for, you know, guys like Jacoby Brissett or Joe Flacco, 2 guys who have been Browns in the recent past, and, you know, they don't have the option to pay a big time free agent quarterback because, well, 1, there's not a lot of free agent quarterbacks that are worth that, and 2, they're paying so much money to Deshaun Watson, it doesn't matter. These 2 guys are familiar, though. Joe Flacco, Jacoby Brissett, they've been around recently. If they want to go a different route, maybe a Marcus Mariota would be a good option there, but either way, you're not getting a very large increase of value in this position one way or another. Running back, a route they have to take. Whether they get Chubb back, okay, there's that, or going a completely different route. If they want to spend a little bit more money, not necessarily than Chubb, but then just on the average, you can go like a Javonte Williams. That could be pretty interesting. Less money, A.J. Dillon. But that's just if they feel like the running back is a more valuable as a solid vet instead of a rookie, which I'm not too sure they would believe that. But either way, more importantly, though, they need wide receiver help. Right now, Jerry Jeudy, he came out of 2024 on a massive breakout season, and that's awesome. But this is the only time we have seen Jerry Jeudy be over, decent in production in his career. So get him some help so that, one, defenses can't just focus on him, and also the quarterback of the future will have some options. Some, guys that might be available are Brandon Cooks, Chris Godwin, T. Higgins if they really want to spend some money to get a really big upgrade here. Value side, Darius Slayton, Nelson Aguilar on the cheaper. That would be good as well. Somebody who can at least be a wide receiver 2, maybe even 3. Just for, helping out. Right now, their next best option is Cedric Tillman, who is just not special. So they got to do something. They need to improve this room in some way, shape, or form. Defensively, though, I could see Cleveland being a very nice landing spot for a guy like Josh Sweat. Looks to get paid following his Super Bowl win, a massive multi-sack game in the Super Bowl. That's huge. He's been a Philadelphia Eagle for a long time. I think he was there the last time they won the Super Bowl as well. He's got 2 rings. Go get a little bit more cash this time around. That's a really solid player. Not a great player, but a solid player to help your team just raise your floor a little bit. Maybe if not that, you can have a Matt Judon or a DeMarcus Lawrence come in and be, a little bit of a veteran presence in there for your team as well. If they're looking for some final year money, just a couple years to round out their career, maybe an option for them. But ultimately, my offseason sim for the Cleveland Browns looks the best if you do it like this. I think you look to find a veteran O-line option, Tyron Smith, Ronnie Stanley maybe, Morgan Moses, someone to bring in a vet presence and solidify that O-line, because the running back's not going to matter if you don't have somebody to block for them. You're not going to break the bank, though, on any of these guys. Probably about $7 million approximately there for each one of them. We're leaving you with about $23 million left. Then I think Darius Slayton does make a lot of sense. Let Jeudy work. Slayton can be the wide receiver 2. That's what I think he can be at best. But you get value out of that from a guy who struggled to find a role in New York, obviously, who doesn't struggle in New York. But not going to be more than about $6 to $7 million for him as well on the average annual value for that contract. And then, like I said, Josh Sweat would be a great option. Coming off of that multi-sack game, he's going to be seeking some cash, and I think he should be. Getting him for around 13 to 15 million should be a good deal in my books. Let's say in the lower end of that, at 13, 14. You're looking at just about all your cap spent right there. But we still have to talk about one big key here. The Myles Garrett trade. This team is so bad, they have run off their best player. Their best player in the last probably 20 years. They've run him off. And I don't blame him at all. Garrett has effectively said that he doesn't believe this team is competitive. He doesn't want to talk about a rebuild, being a rebuild. He's not going to do that. And I don't blame him. It's just Cleveland we're talking about. He's not wrong. He just isn't. So how can he be wrong? They've been the worst team in the league for 20 plus years at this point. He wants to go to a team where he can contend, where he can be a part of Super Bowls, attempt to be on a winner. This place his destination as, something of the list as follows. Maybe Kansas City, Buffalo, Philly, Detroit, San Francisco, the Chargers, Houston, and then maybe the more questionable options, the Vikings, the Bears, Houston in that kind of questionable tier as well. But the thing is, the Browns don't have to honor this. They can trade him to wherever they want. He's not in the final year of his deal. And I'm of the opinion that there are very, 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 very few situations that should result in a team respecting a player's direct request. Now, you want to request a trade? All right, have at it. Do you want to request where you want to go? We'll see about that, buddy. Ultimately, the players don't have to sign the contracts, and they do that. So you don't have to honor their request. They sign the contract to play for you, and, well, now they're already complaining about being there. You don't want a hostage. Send them wherever else. If they do look to trade him, I would aim for one of the, San Francisco, Chicago, Vegas, New England type of locations, mainly because of the draft capital you'd probably get back from them, considering even the best of those teams, San Francisco, is a top 10 pick this year. That's a big thing right there. But this leads into a conversation surrounding their draft, with the draft capital being a part of the trade. As I said before, they're currently slated to be picking 2nd overall in this year's draft. That's great. But if there is any possible chance that you can trade Myles Garrett to the New England Patriots for a package revolving around the 4th overall pick, that is by far the best option you can do. That can nearly flip the script on the Deshaun Watson trade, basically doing what Houston did to get CJ Stroud and Will Anderson, but they're in Cleveland. Use New England's pick and your pick to land Abdul Carter and Cam Ward if at all possible. Those two guys, I'm not the biggest Cam Ward guy, but he is the best quarterback in this draft in my opinion. Get them both, that's going to be a massive improvement this season. Round 2, if you can nab Caleb Johnson, the running back out of Iowa, that is a huge upgrade. Worry about the O-line in free agency. Get the running back in the draft, a young and very talented player. Moving around 3, get some more receiver help. Like we talked about earlier, they brought in a Darius Slayton. He can be your slot guy. Jerry Jeudy can play in the slot as well. He can play outside. But then go get a Jaden Higgins from Iowa State. He can play on the outside as well, be more of your bigger physical body. That'd be a really great pick there. In the 4th round, they have 2 picks. First would be Anthony Belton, the offensive tackle out of NC State, something like that. If he's available, you absolutely grab him up quickly. I think he's honestly probably more of a 3rd-round player, but there's a good chance he does end up in the 4th. Then in the 2nd pick of their 4th round, J.J. Pegues, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, the D lineman from Ole Miss. Get that depth piece there. A solid player, definitely, but a guy who isn't necessarily on the top of the boards in this D-line draft, even though it's super, super deep. Round 5, if you can get Danny Stutzman from Oklahoma, wonderful pick there. He is not projected to be super high at this point. Linebackers typically aren't, and he's a little bit of an older guy, been there for a long time at Oklahoma. But if you can get Danny Stutzman, if you have JOK back or not, that's a wonderful upgrade. They got a bunch of picks in round 6. Starting off with, if Malachi Moore's available, take him quick. Don't even think about it. Then Garrett Dellinger, the interior offensive lineman from LSU. A lot of depth help there. They have some issues around their kicking game. If they can get the kicker out of Miami, I think it's Borealis. He's a really solid college kicker. Take a chance on him. Get a young guy. See if you can keep him for 20 years. That'd be awesome. Then a guy who's going to fall very, 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 very far in this draft, Kyron Lacey. There's a lot of reasons he's falling, and I don't blame him for that. But hey, if you can get a talented player in round 6, a guy as talented as he is, even if he has some, issues, get him. See if you can make him work out. That'd be a great pick for you. And then get DJ Giddens in the back of round 6. A running back out of Kansas State that can just be helpful. Another dynamic player to just put in this backfield along with Cam Ward or whoever else you have as quarterback. And then round 7, they only have 1 pick. Then get the tight end Ben Urasek out of Georgia, a guy who's not played a ton because he's had a lot of guys like Brock Bowers and Oscar Delp in front of him, but a very talented tight end as well. This would fill out their roster, and this would allow them to maybe look into a soft rebuild where they could sort of do this moving along very, very quickly, at least for the most part. This would allow them to look past Deshaun Watson, but there is a lot of ifs in that. If these guys are available, if they can make the New England trade. This is, a projection of what I think would be the best case for them, and it's not necessarily going to happen. But to close, there is one major issue here. One thing that we haven't talked about, and this is probably the biggest of all. I have a saying. Bad franchises remain bad franchises until they're not bad franchises. And if you don't understand what that says, it's essentially to say that it starts at the ownership positions. It starts with the executives and the people up at the very top. A bad team is going to be a bad team until new ownership comes and they're not the same team anymore. They're going to be a bad franchise will be a bad franchise until they're not a bad franchise. How do you change that franchise? By changing the franchise, by changing the ownership, by changing the executives, by changing the leadership. We saw the Commanders this year. They did this and they instantly saw the improvement in results. It's to the point where there's nothing going to happen. I don't think Cleveland will ever compete for anything, ever, without changing who is in their front office. And I'm talking about the higher-ups. I'm not talking about the GM. I'm not talking about the coach. Yeah, you probably change those things too when you change the owners, because a lot of times owners don't want to keep guys that they didn't hire. But it starts with them. They have to fix it because honestly, let's be real. Cleveland fans, you have nothing going for you. You have never had anything going for you. You had a couple years where you had a good record and, no one thought you would win the playoffs. You just didn't have a chance. Whatever it's worth, you've got to make a change. You've got to make a massive change. You need to become a new franchise. You need to, remain in Cleveland. I'm not saying move it. I'm not saying change your name. I'm saying become a new franchise, new leadership, new ownership, new smart people. Because Simply put, you need it. But that's going to be it for this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments section below. What do you think about the Cleveland Browns offseason? What can they do? What do they have to do? Do you think that the New England trade is right? Where do you think Myles Garrett will get traded? That's the big question. Where does Myles Garrett land in your book? And what do the Browns get for him? That's a huge question as well. Either way, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to hit that like button, that subscribe button. They don't cost you a single thing, and they do help my channel out a ton, and I will see y'all in the next one.